Yourself.
My name is Jim McCarthy. Our facilitator was Josh, the assistant city manager. And what we might have talked about is where we should locate student housing projects, how big they should be, planning and zoning type issues, but we really didn't spend much time on that. What we tended to spend our time on was two areas, communications and responsibility. So as far as communications, we noted that the first thing that we kind of said today is that the spirit here is that everybody's not pointing fingers at somebody else. They're all saying, we're in this together, NAU, the city, the neighborhoods, we're all working together. And we also noticed that that was what had worked at Davis and at Fort Collins. So that's the model that we should be using. We talked about the city liaison officer. We thought that would be a good idea, although we all admitted that we couldn't come up with a revenue source. I suggested to the chief of police that we take it out of the police salaries, but that didn't go over too well. Anyway, all kidding aside, we thought that was a good idea if we could figure out how to do it. And like some of these outreach items that we're seeing right here, we think those are very productive and for not too much money. If we do have a liaison, we talked about how that they have to be neutral. They can't become an advocate for the developers. They can't become an advocate for the city or an advocate for the neighborhoods. They have to be neutral and just try to facilitate a conversation so that we can all work together. Okay, so now I think I'm gonna move over to the responsibility part of it, which is what we mostly talked about. We were talking about it would probably be a good idea to have complexes have security plans. And the idea came up, actually Art Babbitt had the idea, that maybe when we get a COP or a zoning change, that as part of that, that we set up a security bond. And we talked about how, well, that may not be too practical to enforce, but the conversation was that if we have a development that really becomes a very severe trouble problem, that's a hammer that we would not often use, but we could. We could revoke their CUP and say, you're not going to be able to have a room and board permit anymore. So that would be for a severe case, of course. But the basic concept is that we would expect large developments to have some kind of a behavioral management plan in place. Let's see. We talked about how right now, at one of the large developments, each room is considered an address. So if room B95 has a complaint, and an hour later room A6 has a complaint, those are completely separate. But it might make sense to reevaluate how we could say if it is at the complex, that we should count all of those as one complex and ask that the managers of that complex take care of this problem. And that would probably take a change in the city code, but that's something the new council could consider. I think I kind of jumped around and covered all of our main points here. So thank you.